Hey folks, it's Blammo. I'm your favorite bald dude, Jeremy Kirkland. I'm very grateful to be your favorite bald dude. Someone actually came up to me when I was in New York, and they were like, "Hey man, you're my favorite bald dude." And I was like, "It's kind of weird when you say it back to me, but we'll let it ride." I'm so happy to be back. New episode for y'all, and I just gotta say, I'm still processing the post Stone Island haze from our event with him the other week. It was great. Thanks again to all of you for showing up, for hanging out, previewing the new Ghost collection. It means a lot to me. It was great. But enough of that. We got a new episode, and it's Mike McLachlan of Manresa. Manresa is a brand, I would say they really popped out for me out of nowhere, but in my head, they came totally fully formed. Something that, as you'll hear from Mike, could not be more opposite of that, which is great. But before we dive in, I have to say, Mike goes into it. And I think his openness, his vulnerability, and his candor is one of the things that truly sets him apart in the best possible way. I mean, he just is constantly giving other people credit. And I mean, you name it. You'll hear it in a second. But I'm not going to get too philosophical here or waxing about Socrates. But like, Mike just admits constantly that he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And if you're a creative director and a person that started a brand, it's really refreshing. I think it's kind of nice to not try to admit you know everything. But I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. He's like, look, I'm just trying to make the brand the best he can. And I don't know. I think it's working. I think it's working just fine. But Mike and I discussed the origins of Manresa, Big Brother style, sobriety, the recent GQ article declaring GORP is dead, which there's some great takes in there, making clothes for things you actually do, and what's next for the brand. All right, folks, here we go. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm getting beat up by life a little bit in the last several months.
Wait, how?
But all good things. Well, I'm like, me and my wife had twins 4 months ago.
Cool. Welcome to the kid club.
Well, we have a toddler. We have a 3-year-old.
Welcome to it again, but worse.
So it tripled real quick. And then we bought a house in January that we've been renovating. This morning was floors, and it like stinks so bad in there still that we can't go back in the house. So that was a whole thing. So we might have to like sleep at my parents tonight. It's a lot. But everyone's happy and healthy, so I shouldn't even be complaining, honestly.
I don't know. I think I'm tired of that shit. I think it's totally fair to complain.
Yes.
Everyone's like, oh man, I shouldn't. And I do the exact same thing, into which like, well, I have shelter and I have clean water and I'm not in a war zone and my life is not in danger. And I do think that is fair to have that perspective. But I think it's also totally fair to be like, you know what? I just want to fucking chill out and watch a movie or just like veg for 2 seconds. I love my kids more than anything ever. And I hope that one day they find these recordings and hear how much I love them. But also, I want to be able to fucking use the bathroom without my son banging on the door like I just abandoned him on Timbuktu. Like,
no, I know.
So,
yeah, for number ones, my daughter still follows me in, and I have to like shield myself.
Yeah.
And then she like knocks on the door for number twos, and I'm like, no, I got to draw the line.
Peace. Well, at least get on you, because my wife is like, oh, it's cute, and then she just lets my son in. And I've never once lived in a home where the door needed to be locked to use the restroom, and I'm now pro door locking. I'm just locking every fucking door when I come in. It's all locked.
Me too, man. I feel, and then like I feel bad for my wife because she has to shower with 2 baby seats like on the floor outside the shower because like she's a stay-at-home mom, so she's like there's nowhere else to put them, and she has to shower because she gets thrown up on 1,000 times a day. So
you're in it
again. Oh, dude, I'm so in it. It's crazy. I never knew you could live so much. Like we last Friday was my birthday. The next day was my anniversary. This Monday was my daughter's birthday. Yesterday was my nephew's birthday. A week before that was my niece's birthday. And it was just like such a whirlwind of all these things we needed to do. And then in the middle somewhere, my daughter got a respiratory infection and was like coughing so bad. We almost went to the emergency room.
Oh my God.
And then we fixed that problem. And then one of the toys she got had these it was like a squeezy toy, and there's like water beads inside that and it exploded.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course my wife Googles and finds out like they're fatal if you
They're
swallow them,
fatal.
because they like
Jeez.
they're like, so like those Orbeez, like they
Yeah, yeah,
expand with
yeah.
water. So if a kid swallows
Huh.
one, it'll just bigger and bigger. You'll get a blockage. So we had to like clean the house for like 4 hours. Then it's been, this is the kind of shit. This is like the parent shit that like probably isn't too fun to listen to on a podcast.
Actually,
like,
no, I think you'd be surprised. I think more people are into this than clothes. Believe it or not, because it is funny because all this stuff you like, it puts all the clothes thing in perspective. Not that, to diminish any achievement, accomplishment, design, talent, pedigree, whatever. Yeah, you're like, dude, I just want to freaking like, yeah, I just want to go eat a sandwich in peace.
Really.
I remember I would go to this park when I was little, and there would be this guy there, and I thought he was kind of creepy. This is back like, so I was born in 85 and I grew up in the 90s, into which like I was raised in this era where you have to avoid strangers because if they might offer you candy and they're trying to kidnap you, right? So there would be this guy there who sat on a park bench, and he would just sit and he would eat he'd eat his footlong from Subway. I shit you not.
Nice.
And he'd be sitting there with his BMT or whatever it was.
Was it Jared Folk? It wasn't Jared Folk.
No, it definitely was not. This is pre-Jared. I think Jared was in his large and in charge era. And
you're right.
I remember seeing him and being like very nervous and being like, oh, I gotta make sure I avoid this guy. Because I'm going to my sandbox. I'm playing X-Men or whatever it is I'm doing. And, gotta watch out for him. And then one day he's got kids all around him, but they were his kids. And I was like, oh man. And I remember even my mom was like, oh, I didn't know that this person had a family. And now I'm like, I bet that was the only quiet time this dude ever got.
Yeah.
Was just sitting in the park, St. Ferdinand Park, eating a Subway sandwich. So wherever he is.
And he had to dodge creepiness allegations.
Yes.
He just wanted to eat just wanted to sit and eat a sandwich. That poor guy.
I know. I feel so bad if he's out there, wherever he is. Hopefully he's a relatively strong, good individual.
I remember my dad used to tell this. It's funny, like I hadn't thought of this story until like this moment, but and now it like really hits home. But my dad used to tell this story about how he would go to the deli down the street and get like his favorite sandwich. And this one time he like got the sandwich on a weekend, took me to the playground that was like right down the street, and I'm like screaming at him to come and help me like on the monkey bars or something like that. So he comes, he walks over, he helps me on the monkey bars, and then he turns around to see a seagull eating his sandwich. It's like, how heartbreaking. Like I feel so like you don't understand that shit until you're a parent yourself.
Wait, seagull. Where'd you grow up?
Norwalk, Connecticut.
Okay.
So we were like right by the Long Island Sound.
That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a nice town. It's like I talk about it sometimes in like product descriptions and whenever I go on a rant, but it's like recently it's been like getting gentrified pretty substantially since COVID, and it's an hour train ride to New York City, so it's like within striking distance for like financial bros. So like,
a lot of Teslas start pulling up in this neighborhood. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yep. And we're like surrounded by a lot of wealth, so it's like New Canaan and Greenwich and Darien and Westport. So like we're surrounded by wealth, but Norwalk has always been this like very working class town. And it's like mostly like all the people I know that in Norwalk who are like generationally wealthy is because they like own an oyster farm or like a clamming boat. Yeah. So like even the rich people are like super blue collar. But now that's like kind of getting destroyed, unfortunately.
Yeah. As with, I would imagine any place that is a relatively beautiful area, but is close proximity to metropolitan stuff. Even St. Louis is like this. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's like getting destroyed, but I mean, you got idiots like me that like, well, I used to live here. And then I come back and I'm like, but it's, so it's interesting. So all the stuff that you're writing about on your product descriptions are real. This isn't made up.
No.
Wow.
No, that's very real.
All right. So for folks, for the record, it's not just storytelling. This isn't just, I have a fictional character and he shucks his oysters and he wears his, his down Manresa.
No, we really live it. My sister-in-law is married to a Bloom. And like, if you eat oysters like on the East Coast, you've probably ate his oysters or his clams. It's like Cops Island oysters and Bloom Brother oysters, like, and clams. That's all them. And he goes out at 4:30 every morning on a clamming boat. And and that's essentially my brother-in-law. So
Damn.
really, really live it. Yeah.
Wow. So you grew up in this area. When did you start working in clothes? Because you were at
Never.
You just fell into
No,
this?
no. So I started trying to make. I'm lucky enough to have an older brother. He's like 6 years older than me.
Okay.
And when I was young, he was just like a very fashionable dude. And I was born in '89.
Okay.
So I grew up in the '90s with an older brother who was just like, for whatever reason, he was just like fashionable. He was just cool.
What was he wearing?
Like, my parents are not like dude, I have pictures of him in like 1992, 91, wearing like a purple Bartman t-shirt.
Ooh, very nice.
Wearing with the kind of like cotton jersey patterned pants that like Will Smith would have worn in Fresh Prince, with a pair of Jordan 5s, black metallic Jordan. I have the picture somewhere.
Yeah.
With black metallic Jordan 5s. And again, he's like 8, 9. No, not even. He's like 6 or 7 at this point. And he like put like highlighter yellow laces.
Oh yeah.
In the
Great
Jordans.
move.
So like, and he's got a rat tail. And my parents are very boomer. Like, they put me in like Oshkosh bagage, like overall.
Probably made in USA too at the time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But like, my parents like shopped at the Gap and like Marshalls. And for whatever reason, my older brother was just very fashion forward, and I wanted to be like him. So like, I'm like 11, 12 years old, like just finding out, like getting into middle school, just finding out what clothes are. You know? And I just want to be like my brother. And he's wearing, dude, it's funny. Like, I feel like his vibe is like pretty popular, or his vibe then is like very popular now, where it's like baggy cargos, like a Woo Wear t-shirt under like a Ralph like denim shirt, and a polo hat that's like where he like scratched off the front of it,
Oh,
so it was,
yeah,
like,
you'd fray it, you'd run it across the concrete, get that little plastic showing. That's ALD 26.
Dude, 100%. And I remember specifically, like, I was like 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old, and he wore this particular brand called Kultjah, Kultjah, which was a local brand from my town, from South Norwalk, Connecticut. And it was really cool shit. They like hand batik dyed and hand block printed these t-shirts and hoodies and hats. And they had a little store in South Norwalk. And I remember asking him, like, where did you get that? Where can I get that? And I remember him saying, like, oh, like, these guys in South Norwalk make them and they have a store down there. And again, I'm like 11. And I remember the moment of like realizing, like, oh, people make clothes. Like, they don't just exist. They don't just like exist at the store.
Right.
People design and make these clothes. It was like a bomb went off in my brain,
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh shit, people make clothes. And that was it. Like, that was the moment. It chose me, like, from that moment on. And I got like a speedball screen printing starter kit for my birthday.
Oh my God. Okay.
And set it up in my basement, next to my dad's like wood shop. And I learned how to screen print in my basement.
Yep.
When I was like 13 years old. And I had like, this brand and that brand. And then I fell in love with like Stussy. It was particularly Stussy. And this would have been in like 2003, 2004. And then like Supreme as well, like prior to it, like absolutely exploding. And this was like so early in it that I was like the only one in my middle school, only one in my high school who was doing this kind of thing, which was like, if you went to a high school today and asked how many kids have a streetwear brand, you'd get 30 kids in every classroom saying me too.
Yeah, that's true.
But back then it was so rare, and like, not, people didn't really know what it was. And like, most people were wearing like if you were cool, you were wearing like, you were trying to look like an extra in a G-Unit music video. You were wearing like throwback jerseys and like pinwheel fitteds and like stuff like that, and like baggy Jabot jeans and like, but like for me, and then like at the same time, it was like, that's like right when, and then like musical interests like start to get introduced into it. And I was like kind of like a little emo scenester kid. So like I started wearing like girl jeans because skinny jeans didn't exist yet.
Yeah, I did that. I was wearing mud with the little handprint on them. Yeah. MUDD.
Yeah. And and then my mom taught me how to sew, so I could like get some Levi's and like take the outseam from the knee down, and stitch rip it out and then taper them. And then like that was the beginning of it all. And then I eventually went, and I never, what I mean by never, when did I get into fashion? Never. I mean, I've never
Sounds
worked
like
in
for
fashion.
a long time you got in
For a long time. but I've never worked in. I the only fashion adjacent job I ever had was I was a backstock manager for an American Apparel.
Oh yeah, I've been there too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was like just
Sixth and
post
Waverly,
college.
2005.
Shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, it was. So were you on the Tuesday at 2 calls with Dub
No,
Charney?
I wasn't cool enough.
No?
I was just a
Shit.
little retail clown. And it was because
Yeah.
I was working at the Starbucks on 6th of Waverly, and I had quit that job. And it was the only job I've ever quit. And then I saw that American Apparel that had just opened, and I went in there and I was like, are you guys hiring? And I remember she looked at me and she was like, yeah, cool. When do you want to start? And I was like, oh my God. I'm so cool. I was like, I just got a job because of how I looked. And it was,
She scanned
yeah,
you?
she scanned me basically. And I worked there for, I don't know, 6 weeks. And I just realized at the time, because this was in the fall, this is fall of 05 maybe. And everyone was just going there to get their Halloween costumes because it was like, it was all blank stuff. A lot of it,
And
yeah. And so you could, dress up as whatever you wanted. And it was also, yeah, there was misshapes near there. And then I got like connected to that. But American Apparel is fucking just horrendous, awful job for me at the time. I don't know.
For anybody. Yeah. Nobody wanted to be there. I did it was a cool job to have in my town for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool, but it was like I've heard Dub Charney just berate people that was the thing. It was like every Tuesday at 2.
Yeah, because I was like, what is this call? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing. I bet you it still goes on at I bet you at LA Apparel right now, there's a Tuesday at 2 call.
Yikes.
Where he tells everybody how he invented the flannel shirt. It's wild shit.
Interesting.
It's wild shit. Yeah. No, but it was fun. But that was my only fashion adjacent job. I had a little brand through high school that did pretty it's funny. I would sell t-shirts to pay for candy and French fries at lunch from the hot bar. And then at the end of every semester, there was a thing where if you lost your books, they would lend you books.
Yeah, you owed money.
If you lost, I owed money.
Same.
And my parents would get so furious when I lost a book.
Yeah, man.
To have to pay $10 was just
$10, man. Your books were cheap. Ours were $60.
Oh, dude. Well, it was $10 a book, and I would lose 6 of them. So it would be $60.
Yeah.
I'd lose all. And I remember I think my sophomore year, I quickly sold 3 or 4 t-shirts to pay for my lost books, so I didn't have to tell my parents. That was the beginning.
What were on these t-shirts?
So at that time, sick. I haven't thought about this in a long time. At that time, the name of the brand was G-Root, Geeroot.
Okay.
Which was an ode to my favorite album, which is Grassroots by 311.
Yeah, familiar.
And
that was the Head album, because people were like, "No, man, I'm into the Blue album with the alien," and you're like, "Nah, fam, Grassroots."
The Blue album it's so fun. I was just listening to the Blue album today.
It holds up.
It does. Their first 5 albums hold up. And cool kids might, try and trick you out of loving 311. 311 fucking rules. They're my favorite. They're still one of my top 5 favorites to this day. But so it would just it would say G-Root, and because I had to learn the whole process of screen printing, and a lot of it was just copying that brand that I told you about, Culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to dye t-shirts, boutique dye t-shirts, where I would wax off a portion of the t-shirt, dye it, get the wax out, melt the wax out afterwards, but it would leave a blank space, and then I would screen print just the word G-Root in there somewhere. They were pretty dope. And even looking back on it now, they were pretty dope. But yeah, that was the first brand that was even mildly successful for me, where I could sell 5 shirts at a time.
And I'm curious about this, because I think a lot of people get more into clothes in a similar way that there's a person in their life they want to emulate, and sometimes you have this hindsight story in which you have a revisionist history, and it's oh, my grandfather, this, that, and it's whatever. You were looking through Teen Beat, you were looking through whatever magazine, and you wanted to be that person. But it's interesting for you as your brother, and even then, because I think my brother had cool style, but I wanted to look I'm really dating myself here. I wanted to look like Jonathan Taylor Thomas, or I wanted to look like, Elijah Wood, or, whatever sort of thing. And then I remember I was into, which is now the dude, obviously horrendously canceled because he's a buffoon. But you remember the No Way Out Puff Daddy and the Family album and the
Yeah,
Notorious
yeah,
B.I.G.,
yeah.
I was like, oh, I want to look like that. Like that would be so cool.
Oh, dude.
And, you know, but it's so much like kind of like pop culture stuff influenced me into like getting more into clothes. But it's interesting how much of this is your brother. So when you're making these designs and you're thinking of this stuff, you know, is this like, I'm going to get acceptance by my brother, you know, because it sounds like he already liked you. I'm just kind of curious, what was the drive of this?
No, he didn't like me.
Okay,
It was
never
like,
mind.
it wasn't like, it was 100 to this day.
Oh, no.
Me and my brother are best friends
okay.
now, but like at the time I'm 12 and he's 18.
Oh yeah. All right.
So like me trying to tag along with my brother, he would just beat the shit out of me.
Sure.
He would throw me out of cars and shit,
well.
you know, like I flinch when I walk past my brother. I'm bigger than my brother by like a few inches. When I walk by my brother, I like cover my chest like this still to this day. I'm 35 years old. Because he would just for no reason punch me in the chest as hard as he, you know, like, and it was and it's so funny. Like I would get real hyped up about a design that I made or a shirt that I made, and I'd show him, and he would poo it, and I would just like deflate.
Oh
and
no!
I was like, oh, this is trash.
No,
this is garbage. Possibly, yeah, stuff like that.
Wait, hold on a second. Okay, before you send that DM or text that friend, I know what you're thinking. You're ready to buy your first serious watch, or in other cases, maybe your fourth or your fifth. But look, man, it's hard out there. It really is. From this dealer or that store that wants the purchase history or whatever. I mean, you're just, I don't know, you're almost ready to walk away from the whole game. But fear not, my friends. Check out Bezel. Bezel is the trusted marketplace for buying and selling your next luxury watch, with expert in-house authentication on every purchase. With over 18,000 watches listed right now, as of the time I'm recording this, from a mix of professional dealers to private sellers, you're just going to find what you're looking for. But wait, I know. You're like, Jeremy, I'm sorry. They don't have that X Rolex or that insane Omega. Well, reach out to them. Bezel has a real team of real people. Just create an account and be connected with a private client advisor, and they will guide you through the entire process every step. Once you decide on your watch, it's overnighted to Bezel HQ, where their in-house team of experts authenticate it, and then it's on your way to you. If anything is amiss, the watch is not listed correctly, whatever it is, they'll let you know, the buyer know, and the offer to refund you or source you a new one at a similar price. That's pretty good, right? This has been part of the Bezel ethos since launch. I've even spoke to the founders about it. And now you can make an offer on a watch, buy it outright, or bid it at auction. Bezel is the highest rated watch marketplace out there. Even Trustpilot shows Bezel is 4.9 out of 5 stars with rave reviews. Okay, you're still on the fence? Dig into the Blamo feed yourself and listen to my chat with the Bezel co-founders and, well, see for yourself. But you got this. I believe in you. Visit getbezel.com and buy and sell your next luxury watch. That's getbezel.com. Getbezel.com.
But I think you and my brother are about the same age, and dude, what's really, really funny is the Jonah Hill movie, mid-90s.
Yes.
That's my life.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I don't know how he got a camera on my life, but that's my life. Aside from the fact that my brother is not like a fucking loser.
Yeah.
Like my brother was actually cool. And I was trying to tag, he was at the skate park already. And I was just tagging along with him, trying to look like him, trying to look cool, trying to dress like him, listening to the music he listened to. He introduced me to 311. He took me to my first concert when I was like 12, 13 years old.
Which was?
And 311 in
wow, so your first concert was 311.
First concert was 311. First time I ever drank, 13 years old.
Jeez.
On the train to New York City.
Yeah, sure.
In like a McDonald's cup, like rum in a McDonald's cup.
Rum. Wow, and, what a way to open the floodgates there.
Yeah. Oh, it was sick. And then like obviously like weed smoke everywhere.
Sure.
He like teaches me how to go into it was a chill mosh pit. It's a very chill pit, but he like teaches me how to properly go into a pit, how to crowd surf, all that shit. But yeah, like I was learning pop culture like through my brother, and like, but like he had like the stack of CDs like in the rack, like it was a rack that had like CDs in it, and I would go grab a CD and borrow it secretively and then scratch it, and he would beat the shit out of me.
Wait, you'd scratch? What were you doing scratching CDs?
I'm a I'm fucking 12. I'm 13.
Yeah,
You know,
all
like
right,
I'm an
fair.
idiot. I deserved it. I deserved it. But also with clothes, I would like borrow his clothes
Yeah.
and often lose them. I was just so thoughtless when I was a child, and I would lose. I remember specifically, I lost a his cherished, like prized 555 sole hoodie.
Oh, fantastic hoodie.
And
Yeah.
to this, dude, it's funny. It was one of the hoodies that they kind of re-released with this like reboot in a different color, but it was the same hoodie. It was like it was like a applique like hoodie that said 555 sole. It was a blue hoodie with like a chenille applique. And I loved that hoodie, and I stole it from him and lost it. And it was like the worst thing I've ever done to my brother to this day, I swear. And but yeah, that was the thing. And he'd have posters on his wall. He had like double XL, like Biggie posters
Yeah.
and like Tool posters.
Oh wow, that's a real
I'm like,
spectrum there. You're into Maynard
yeah,
James Keenan as well as Notorious B.I.G.
yeah. And I'm so happy that he was that, like his tastes were like that eclectic.
Uh-huh.
Where like, yeah, like I love Talib Kweli and I love fucking like Rage Against the Machine, just as you know. And it was like there were so many different. So a lot of what I do, a lot of the style that I have is like still trying to copy him, but also it's funny because like he went on to be like a regular adult. Like he's a civil engineer. He wears like carpenter pants most days, and like he doesn't give a shit anymore. But like at the time in high school and in college, you couldn't find a fucking cooler person, especially like the way he dressed. Like he was just, you know, the fucking coolest, effortless.
Yeah.
Know?
I mean, it's, I think that stuff's fascinating because, yeah, I mean, my older brother was like that too. And now, you know, I even would like try to get him some stuff or I'll give him things or I'm like, yo, like check out these pants. And he's like, who are these? I was like, oh, South to West 8. Like there's some, you know, and it's fine. There's no shots to him. He just doesn't care. And, you know, he's got other stuff going on. You know, he works on like commercials and, you know, like video shoots and stuff like that.
I flow my brother a lot of stuff now, and he's like, I'm like kind of in the last year or two since Manresa has like really popped off a little bit.
Yeah.
He's like gotten reintroduced to it all. So like I brought him to a 316 release party one time and like got him some raw denim that he wears all the time. I get free like New Balances sometimes to like shoot with lookbooks, and he'll sneak them out. He'll steal them from me. He's stealing from me now.
Yeah.
So those will walk out the door. And now he wears Manresa like every day. He's very proud.
Oh,
so
well, there you go. So you came full circle, and you're
totally.
And obviously, I mean, you know, I think Manresa was a brand, at least for me, that really, really came out of nowhere, but like started pretty high. I mean, everyone was into it. Everyone was talking about it. I mean, I'd gotten some stuff from you in the past. Like there was, you know, it was great, but you know, I mean, the fact that, you know, because I'm like, oh, you know, where were you? What was the stuff that you were doing beforehand? And you're like, oh, I wasn't in clothes. Yeah, I mean, so you basically been making clothes for, you know, 20 plus years.
Yeah, with like a little break. I've told this story before too, but like I'm 10 years sober now. But when I got sober 10 years ago, I stopped making stuff for a couple years, and I was like going to quit. I was like never going to make anything again.
Sure.
And then Manresa is like what came out of that, like 3 years later when the dust kind of settled and I like got my life back. Manresa is like what came out of it. So
that's incredible. Cool. I mean, and congrats on 10 years. That is a massive accomplishment.
Yeah.
So you take this break and you launch Manresa. And how many years have you been doing it now? It's like 4, 5 or less?
No, so for 4 or 5 years I've been doing cut and sew.
Okay.
Which is like right when the brand started to like get some eyes on it. Yeah. But for the first like 3 or 4, so I think it's like 7 years now. I've been doing Manresa. And the first like 3 years, it was just it was just like screen printed t-shirts, hoodies, embroidered caps. And I actually like when I started it, so like being an addict, I was like, and I kind of slipped into the addict thing. Like in the beginning, it was very like genuine and like authentic. Like it chose me. Like I wasn't doing it because it was cool. Because at the time, it wasn't even cool. You know, like
what wasn't cool?
And like fashion, like design, like being like football was cool in high school. Right. I was like doing design and graphics and like printing t-shirts in my basement. And then I actually went to college for fashion design. I went to Marist College up in Poughkeepsie, New York. And they had a good design program. And I was like one of 25 people picked to like be in the program my year, and I was the only boy in the whole program, all 4 years. And I did that for like a year and a half and essentially failed out because I just can't sew. I'm just not a good enough sewist to really be what they. Now looking back, I also realized I was an addict and I was doing drugs all day and, getting drunk 5 days out of the week, which is probably why I failed out. I can sew actually pretty good now.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, like the addiction kind of like took over everything. And in that period of time, I was so delusional and I was pouring any bit of money I had into this brand. And it was kind of like, putting a lot of pressure. It's almost like your best friend is one of those kids who's like 40 and still trying to make it. And not to, poo-poo anybody's career choices, but like they're still trying to be a rapper.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's
like sad and like, and you're like, and you're legit and you're just like legitimately delusional because what you're making is like thoughtless and shitty. Like if your friend is really good at rapping, like, it, but when they're, whatever, that was me. And I was just like making really thoughtless designs. And I was just like, I'd look at something like Only did, like in early Only days. And I'd just be like, oh, I got to do that. That's cool. I got to do that. And I was really just like drunk or high in a basement on a computer doing nothing but like designing little graphics and printing t-shirts. But like, I wasn't engaging with the community. I wasn't like going and feeling this stuff in New York. Cause again, I'm just in a basement and I'm an addict. Like, I think I'm doing really cool stuff, but I'm actually not. So when I got sober, I realized that.
Yeah.
There's like, oh, I'm done. That's embarrassing. I'm done. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm just going to get a 9 to 5 and I'm going to eat shit for the rest of my life. I'm cool with that. Like, I got out alive. I'm very cool with just being a fucking responsible adult and like that. And that's what I did. At the time I was working at a promotional product manufacturer as like a graphic designer. Like,
quite a way to stop doing what you're doing. You're like, well, I'll just go work here.
Dude, and like they like specialized in like mint tins. So I was like basically just putting logos onto mint tins.
Oh,
for a couple years.
Okay.
I eventually like built out their screen printing department. And like, a year or two into my sobriety, like that was fucking good. Like, I finally had a job, like a real job.
Yeah.
I was not making good. I almost like took a lower paying job just to like punish myself. It was like hilariously underpaid. Like
that's somewhat common for people that,
Totally. Yeah. And, like I have a very strong family and like support structure, but like, I was like, I don't even know if it was legal what they were paying me, but I worked there for a couple years and then I got a better job offer. And I worked at a grocery store for like 4 or 5 years, designing their like print advertisement.
Oh, that's actually pretty sick. I'm not going to lie. I think grocery store ads are low key. Like there's some really great stuff in there. I'm not even kidding.
I learned sign painting a little bit. Like I helped with like displays.
Okay.
And I designed like they private label potato chips or like canned beans, and like I would do the packaging. It was pretty cool. And like the particulars grocery store that I worked at, it's called Stu Leonard's, and it's what they bill themselves at. And it was started in my town. There's like 6 or 7 of them now in like New Jersey and New York and Connecticut. But they bill themselves as the Disneyland of grocery stores.
Whoa!
So you walk.
This is Erewhon, pre-Erewhon.
Very pre-Erewhon. And almost like the exact opposite of Erewhon, where it's like it's not about being chic and cool. It's about being as corny as possible.
Oh yeah.
And like essentially they just like want your kids to badger you to go to Stu's instead of Stop and Shop. So they have costume characters walking around giving out like free samples.
Holy.
They have animatronic there's buttons. There's like 10 buttons. You go throughout the store, you push a button, and then like a stick of butter pops out from above the display and sings you a song. And then you go a little bit further, and then a cow will moo and sing some different song. It's pretty sick. And I worked there for 4 or 5 years, like with this, like doing all their, like a lot of their designs and basically all their print advertisement. And I think it was while I was there that I like my creativity and like I kind of like, when you like come out of addiction like that, you have to like rediscover who you are. Like because addicts don't have a personality. Their identity is I just want to get fucked up.
I think that is 100% accurate. There is a bit of Arrested Development literally that happens there, into which, as so I've done Al-Anon and been around other family members and folks who have wrestled with addiction, where there is a thing that happens, and also there's like a level of hyper focus that that happens when you're in the process of kind of rediscovering yourself and figuring out who you are. And I would say it's very common that people that wrestle with addiction are also wildly incredibly talented at things that people do not appreciate as much as they value other stuff. And I say that because there's so much talent out there with people that are wrestling with that, as there is with many people, but it's not understood or appreciated, And so, I mean, it's
No, I agree. That's my experience. And even like little, like I think back to like it feels like a different person thinking back to, but like I think back to that time and I was like, did I even listen to music?
What do you mean you didn't listen to music? You were in 311 world all the time.
Dude, I don't think so like prior to being an addict, I was like a snowboard addict. I was a skateboard addict. I was a music addict, and I was an art addict, and then found drugs and alcohol. And then like I remember times where I went to Vermont with my friends for a weekend and I didn't leave the house. I didn't leave the rental because I just stayed in and got fucked up. I didn't even want to go snowboarding, and snowboarding was my thing. It was like the thing I loved most.
Yeah.
And then you give all that shit up just to get fucked up. So like getting out of it took 3 years of me being sober to like find my identity again. And like when that happened, it's crazy. It just like it started coming out again, like unconsciously, where I would just be like drawing like brand names for no reason at all. Cause like also like I kind of promised my then girlfriend, now wife, I was like, no, I'm done. I'm not gonna do a brand anymore. I promise. I'm not gonna go down that road again. And that was like, it was kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Joke's on her. Now you're the breadwinner crushing it with your brand. Gotcha.
It was a wild ride. It was a wild ride because, like, in the beginning, I'd say, like, yeah, I'm going into the office early to like screen print some stuff, and she'd be like,
"Not again."
Okay. She'd be like, okay, like just very passive aggressive, like, all right, I guess. Yeah. And now here we are, like 7 years later, and she's just like the biggest cheerleader.
Oh,
she's
God bless her. Good, that's wonderful.
And we say everything.
Yeah.
And then I totally understand why she was hesitant to support it again in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it's like, and it just starts pouring out of me. And then initially Manresa was just, it was a project for me. It was not for, that's almost like how I sold it to her.
Yeah.
It was just like, I'm not doing this to sell it. I'm not going to market it. I just want to prove to myself, like I'm working at a grocery store. I am indeed a working stiff. I just want to prove to myself I've got like, and then there's just like this competitive side of me where it's just like, I see other people, other designers and other brands like doing well. And some of them I despise. And I just find them to be just like thoughtless and like,
careful with that drive. I know exactly what you're talking about. It can be quite toxic.
It is. I hate a little. Dude, it's funny. Me and Antonio Chungley. We're just talking about how the world needs more hate. Like
I don't know about
that. He was just telling me how he thought like he flipped it and he was like, no, the world needs more hate. It was about that article that was like, don't let your friends wear chore coats.
Oh, you saw that one? Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, that's Noah Johns from GQ who did that, and I think unfortunately we've been trained by an era of responding to discourse instead of living in a time of celebrating everything. And I think some of this is like the whiplash of cancel culture and then mindfulness of people just being like, no, we should be kind. We should be optimistic. Criticism is good. I think that is, and I know Antonio very, very well, love him dearly. And I agree. I think criticism is it is how we grow and improve, Sure. And so I only just gently, because I feels like that's what you're referring to versus we need more hate.
Mildly, because I think it's like one, like he like reposted that article and then underneath it, he like just like on his own wrote something about how like, and let's get rid of mustaches too. And the day before, literally the day before, I had just shot a lookbook where I had new chore coats for sale. And I used a model with a mustache. So like he hit the nail on the head of like the look that I was going for. And then, and I was like, damn, hey, am I fucking up? Like, what am I doing wrong here? He's like, no, I'm just joking. But like, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of hate out in, I say hate in the way that,
I know what you're saying. I'm helping you out here. And don't worry. I know exactly what you mean, because I think
it's playful.
Yes. And some of that I think produces really great drive. Like I'm with you on that zone. Like there are a few people, and I've said this before, like I have a few friends. I shouldn't say friends. I have a few like acquaintances. You know, as I've gotten older, I realize I have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 friends, like real friends. But like, you know, I have a few acquaintances, and when they get into a brand, these people are absurdly they don't even listen to this, but they're absurdly wildly by an order of magnitude in a level of wealth I cannot comprehend. And when they get into brands, I'm like, fuck, it's over. Like I had a garbage bag in my car of a bunch of stuff I just dropped off, filled with many of those brands this individual just went and purchased, because I'm like, dude, you're the death rattle, you know?
Party's over.
And I actually, it's funny because like, I kind of love that. And I think like that's some of the stuff you're talking about too, where I'm just like, oh, well, I got to get off that now. And I got to get on a different thing because, and I recognize the absurdity of it. I mean, hell, you know, I make a podcast about clothes, right? So like, you know, it's absolutely fine to have that. And it's funny because even, you know, Noah wrote an article today. We're saying GORP is over, right? And well, like, I think the point of all these things is to just get people to disagree. Like, it's not. Nothing is.
Well, I think
nothing is over.
I think that's even what Antonio. Yeah, I think that's even what Antonio meant. It was like we'd probably get more eyes on our brand in our, like, if we had just hated, if we were just a little bit more polarizing.
Yeah, sure.
And like, and that's probably like the tactic with the GORP is, I don't know, like GORP. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Is one, it gets people talking about it. You know, sure. And it's, you know, and Noah, I messaged Noah on this, and I was like, dude, you are unloading on everything right now. And he said, no one is safe, even myself, you know, which is true. But at the same time, if you read the article, he doesn't say that like no one should own those things. It's more of the fact that like, I think when anything becomes a trend, and I'm going to air quote that word, people then kind of mindlessly consume it and assume that if I have all these things, if the chessboard is set, if I have all this stuff around me, now I'm complete. My style is done, and then I don't have to think about it anymore. And that there's truth to that. There's a lot of people that I know into which, you know, clothing is something that they loathe. And so they're like, just give me the stuff that I need to have. I got all the gear. Now I put it on and I go and I do my thing. And I think that's a fine way to live. But like for me and many listeners of this podcast and you and other stuff, I'm like, no, man, that's just where I get started. Like I fucking begin when I am, you know, chasing down some visual idea in my head, some individual, some amalgamation of coolness with different textures and then different things that I want to have that no one else has, or that someone had 10 years ago that I'm bringing back. And I'm going to combine this all into this absurd Rorschach test that only I can see the true vision on here. And I think that's where like, that's like the nirvana, whatever, of getting dressed is like, I don't fucking dress for anyone else anymore. And I'm realizing that I get dressed for myself and that drive. And even then, you know, whether it's an article that Noah writes or anything, I'm like, I'm going to push harder. It's like, you think chore coats are dead? Well, guess what, punk? I got a new chore coat.
I've got a 1950s
and it's
French
chore and coat. It's sick. And guess what? Yeah. I think knowing Noah, who is an amazing guy, great dude, he's not going to come and tell you that you can't own that. He's got fucking 10,000 Evan Kenori pieces just swinging from the rafters of his house, right? I mean, that's not actually true, but I'm just assuming so because they're so close. But like, it's like, come on, you know. But I feel like that's fashion in a nutshell. Like, we didn't like skinny jeans. We like skinny jeans. We don't like wide jeans. We like, you know, who cares? Sorry for that vomit. I really just kind of went off there. Excuse me.
No, I like it. No, but that's and even like in my on the Instagram for the Manresa Instagram, like underneath, like the quote is several themes thoughtfully woven. And like that's how I think about it. Is like all these different, you know, threads come together and like, you know, go like this and make that fabric that is, you know, your look or your identity. or whatever. So yeah, I completely agree.
And I mean, I think that's a thing too, where some of my favorite lookbooks and editorials. Now, look, if you're a brand, you shot a lookbook. I'm assuming you had all Manresa product in it, because the point of this is to say, here is my product world, check it out, and here's how it all fits together. But
Yeah.
and I think the editorials and the lookbooks and stuff that I've always loved over the years are showing me things of how, I think it's why like a lot of people love Japanese stuff, because rarely do you see head to toe of the same brand. You see just an amazing mixture of it. Like when I can see a way that I could wear a Manresa, coat with like tailored pants and, I don't know, an old like boot or something like that. Like you get to see how all these things that I own can actually fit together and complement each other. And that for me is where I always get some of the most excited and inspired as a person who's like, my weakness is I get into a brand and I just get way into it, like head to toe. I got to get all of it. And that doesn't always fix things, Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. I never considered myself to have, like, I look at other like actually stylish brand owners and I'm like very insecure and jealous of like when you see like Andrew Chen in a daily Fitbit every day, he dresses better than my best every day is better than my best day. Antonio too. It's like I have like I do like to go down the rabbit hole and like obviously I design this stuff and I usually only design the stuff that I want to wear.
Yeah.
But I have like reverted. I've gone backwards to where I'm a uniform guy now, where I wear the same jeans, the same selvage raw denim every day, and now I like to wear just like a white t-shirt every day.
Yeah,
and I guess I change the hat every once in a while, and sometimes I'll throw like a vintage t-shirt in there. But other than that, I've gone and now I went down those rabbit holes too, and I bought Mersby Schwanen white tees, and I bought Whitesville.
Sure.
And that the Warehouse shirt, I forget the name of the brand, from Japan or whatever.
Yeah, Warehouse, their brand, yeah.
And I have a pair of Samurai jeans, and I have a couple pairs of 316s, and the ones I wear every day are Imogene and Willie. So like I went baller with it, but like I've gone backwards. I've like regressed. I also think it's just like I think this is like I don't like to compare myself to like whatever, like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or anything like that. But like I feel like I've heard of that about them, where it's like they don't want any choices in this. They have enough choices to make every day.
Yeah.
So they take that off the plate. It's just like I'm gonna wear the same shit every day and obviously with 3 kids and all that, it is nice to just wake up and like pick the jeans off the floor and grab a fresh white t-shirt and fly out the door. But like, I wish I could put that shit on like fucking Andrew does or like Antonio does. Cause they, they have legitimate good style.
I mean, but I actually think that you saying that means you do have good style, because one, you're like, look, this is what I'm doing. This is what I like. This is what I wear. Like, I mean, and that's the thing too. Cause like style is never ever about clothes. It's just about like how you feel when you're wearing whatever you're wearing,
being comfortable, confident.
Yeah, I've seen dudes wearing CCP and all this fancy, expensive shit that look like total morons, and it's just because they're not comfortable. And you can wear that stuff and look fantastic, but it's just like it's never the clothes. And I think but it's very interesting to me as a person who does make clothes that cool people wear. Is like, well, I don't know if I'm cool. You're definitely cool.
Well, thank you.
Well, yeah, I think you're doing okay, Thanks, and also man. I'm more into like, what's really cool is like being a parent and freaking affording healthcare and,
motherfucker,
dude. Yeah. Flexing on your copays is that's my new way to, that's how I get high now.
Yeah. Like I just bought a new, so I renovated like 80% of this house that I bought in January because it was essentially just like a knockdown when I bought it. But my brother's an engineer and worked in construction. My dad worked in construction in college. So like we've renovated my brother's house. We've renovated my father's house.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, another, bit of authenticity there is like I make work coats and I definitely know how to use a fucking skill saw, like it's not, I'm not faking it there either. And I'm like, and like I said, like, I have the floor guys there sanding and staining today. But like I had to renovate, like we turned this like 3-season porch into a 3rd bedroom because we have like 5 humans living in this tiny house now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I just bought a new closet door that
Okay.
was like more expensive than fucking, I don't know how it could possibly be that
Did you get
expensive.
a pine
But
door?
like, that's the kind of shit I ball out on. It's just like a nice, bifold fucking solid core door. Like that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Dude, welcome to the show. I think
Yeah,
that's the real adulthood stuff. Because people are like, yeah, what are you getting right now? It's like, dude, I'm saving up for a chair. A single chair?
yeah,
Yeah, but it's a sick
yeah.
chair. When you come to my house, you're gonna sit in this chair
It's
and
gonna be
your
nice.
your head's gonna explode,
You're gonna see this closet door, and you're gonna be jealous.
Dude, so one of my friends from high school, he that's what he does. He's like a contractor and builds houses, and he does everything. And he saved the day for us when we got our house, because we got our house, bought it basically sight unseen in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we had issues with our basement, and we had to get a drainage tile, and then we got our kitchen redone and all these things, and he was just there doing shit and helping us out, and it was the best. And
Yeah.
it's funny because he was also great, and I say this in love, because he'd be like, well, you could do it this way. I'd be like, well, all right, so we need these cabinets, right? So like, what sort of cabinets you get? He's like, well, you could get this, and this is really cheap, and we could knock this out, in a day. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, is that what you'd get? And he's like, well,
That's the question.
I'd probably get this. And he was like, look, I'm not going to charge you a markup on anything. He's like, but like, you tell me what you want. And he's like, you probably want cabinets with soft close. And I was like, oh, soft close cabinets.
Totally. Gotta have soft close.
I was like, okay, yeah. Well, then, yeah, let's do that. And he's like, and let's make sure we get this. And then, these are solid here. And then if there's ever any issues with it, with kids down the road, he's like, you can replace this and you don't have to replace this. And he's like, but this will be a little bit more. And I was like, let's fucking go. I was like, give me the nice cabinets. Give me.
Yeah. It's nice when you own it and you can just like, you could charge it to the game and just say like, I'm doing it right the first time. I don't want to do it. And I guess that's a fashion thing too, that
bingo.
I think a lot of people are learning right now. And I've learned recently is like, buy better and buy less.
Yeah.
Like just, get it right the first time. And I would do the same thing with my brother, where like you kind of like, you watch a YouTube video or two and you're like, oh, I could do it this way.
Yeah.
Then I'll ask my brother and he'll be like, and I'll be like, what would you do? He's like, oh, I would do it like this. And you're like, okay, done. Let's go.
Yeah.
Run it the right way. Cause he's like, he's lived it. He's done it, in the real world. So you always take his advice.
A lot of stuff at our house too was like weekend warrior repairs. And so when inspectors and people came in, they were like, oh boy. They're like, this is not code. This is not correct. This is not. And I was like, oh, okay. Whoops.
I don't want to perjure myself, but inspectors are not coming into my fucking house right now. I'm staying there forever. I'm not flipping it. Don't worry.
Well, that was the thing too. Like when we were getting we had to redo our whole basement, because literally like that, I'm in a split level home, and a whole level was just flooded and empty. And so it's just a white box down here. And so we basically had to rebuild all this stuff. And I was like, well, do we got to get permits for all these things and all this stuff? And my buddy was like, well, he's like, we're going to do it up to code. But he's, and he was like, well, are you trying to flip this, or are you going to be here a while? I was like, I'm going to be here a while. And he's like, you're fine.
Run it. Yeah, run
he's like, we got you. He's like, we're not dealing with this.
When I told my brother like all the things that I wanted to do, and like we started having that conversation, it was infuriating to find out. I was like, I gotta go to City Hall for this fucking tiny little thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean like that affects nobody. It was like, do I have to go to City Hall when I want to change the outlet cover on my? It's absurd. It really is absurd. It's almost like in protest that I'm not going to do that shit, because it truly is.
It's funny.
Overreach, it feels like. But I also do understand, I wholeheartedly do understand why, if you were to be flipping, like, you could just get a guy who's throwing the shittiest electrical system into this house. It's going to go up in flames in 10 years.
Yeah.
And he's going to have made millions and been sitting on a beach in Mexico. Like, he's not going to, so I get it, but I'm living here for a long, long time. I'm going to do it right. I promise you I'm going to do it. I don't want to die. I'm going to do it properly.
Yeah.
But it's also funny that like, fixing up my house, I had to ask a couple buddies. All of my buddies who I skated with and snowboarded with are all tradesmen now.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty fucking sick. And they're all like, and they also are like the kind of person who would have bought, like, buy my clothes. It's like a DIY kind of, I don't know why skateboarding and DIY culture like go hand in hand, but they definitely do.
The ultimate question. I agree.
My buddy who like was the guy who filmed all the skate videos, like all the skate footage when we were kids. He's like a one-man band, like, single man contractor who could build a house single-handedly. And then another buddy of mine who I skated and snowboard with helped me with a lot of the carpentry.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like a carpenter. He worked in Vermont building luxury log cabins, like mortise and tenon joints on logs this big, like $7 million luxury log cabins in Vermont. And he did this shit for like 10 years. So he's like, it's incredible to see like all of my friends and then the best snowboarder, best skater in my town is my plumber.
There you go, man.
So, like, all of them, man.
You're gonna have a Manresa mansion over there.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. It's very small and it's very well done. I'll say that.
There you go.
Yeah.
So as you're like the brand's continuing to grow, is it still just you, or have you brought people on now?
I brought one guy on.
Okay.
My buddy Charlie McGill. And he has like over this last 4 months, especially like since I've had my twins, he's like saved my life a handful of times. I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. He is like, he is now my best friend, my brother's like, he started working for me and I was like, Bill, it's like he's a long lost brother. It's like he's a cousin. I don't know how, but he's like our people. And he's now like our, one of our best friends. And, I brought him on as the head of like production and product development, which is what he was the VP of product development and production at Amelie Door for like the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So like through their like big, huge spike, he was there like touching every product. Like he managed that whole like production team. So like, but he also just like happens to be my exact same age, loves the same music, loves, traditional tattoos, loves, he was born and raised in Connecticut. His family still lives in Connecticut. So like, I don't know how, but like, he's like a long lost brother.
Oh, it's amazing.
Now my right hand man. And he also knows how to make clothes like in a way that I don't, which is really, really, really nice.
Wait,
which is why
what do you mean by that? Like make clothes? Because I think a lot of people don't understand,
totally.
the tech pack world, and it's more than vibes and mood boards, to kind of air quote here. I'm
a big vibes and mood board guy.
Okay,
and I know how to make a tech pack. My issue, and I think most people's issues when they go in to start like designing stuff, is just pure blind, unconscious ignorance. So like, I don't even know what I don't know. Like that was my issue for the first 3 or 4 years of the brand, like especially making cut and sew clothing, is like, I don't even consider this thing that's massively important. Like I remember one of the first items I made, I was just like, oh yeah, put a zipper on it. And it was the worst fucking zipper ever. And I had to replace like 20 zippers on these like down coats that I made. It was like, It was a nightmare. And then, like, well, did you use YKK? Was it like a number 5 zipper? Was it antique brass? Was it, molded plastic? And I was like, I've never even heard these words before. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
And so like, and you have to kind of, when you're doing it alone and you didn't work in fashion, you kind of have to like learn, through fucking up like that. And I did that over and over and over again. And there were even times where like I would get a sample of this like brilliant idea that I had, and I'd lay it down or I'd wear it and I'd stare at it and I'd say, I don't know why, but this is awful. Like, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I have to throw this in the garbage. This is awful. And I would scrap I would scrap styles. I would like throw SKUs like in the trash and like not even pick them up again. I wouldn't know how to make the comments to get it wearable. I just had no clue. And now with Charlie, we get a sample that's a little bit off where I have no idea exactly what's wrong with it. And he'll be like, oh, well, you got to get a wash on this. There need to be some highs and lows and puckering in the seams. Maybe we increase the stitches per inch. We need to drop the armpit a little bit. It's a little tight in the armpit. And these are like legitimate like product development, and he's worked everywhere. So like he worked at Amay, he worked at Mark McNary, he worked at Ralph Lauren. I think he worked at Nike for a little bit. He worked at Stamped. Like,
oh my God, Stamped.
He's been everywhere.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. He lived in Ohio, working at Abercrombie and Fitch for a long time. So like, he's like almost a cheat code. Like, I feel like he gets at least half the credit for that. He's been on for the last year. So this past spring, summer, and now this fall that we just dropped, he touched and had a lot of say in. And the quality of the product is just, grown like exponentially And it's nice to see that that's actually what people want also. It's like, I remember in the beginning, when I was like kind of frustrated with the brand not growing at all, and I had just met Antonio, and he was kind of like mentoring me a bit. He was like, he started following me because he liked a couple of the graphics, I think, that I had put out, and I just messaged him, and I was just like, hey, I work after the grocery store. I went and I just did screen printing. I just did I worked at a screen printing shop, and I was like, hey, like if you ever need screen printing or embroidery, like I'd be happy to help you. And he was like, dude, the fact the warehouse in New Jersey just burned a shit ton of our hoodies. That'd be great. Like we need a new guy. So I started doing it for him. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I'll give you really good prices if you look over my line sheet and like give me some critiques. And little did I know, he is a top 5 dead or alive American designer. Like,
yeah,
he is incredible. The knowledge he has in his brain. Like, I ask him on occasion, like, do you have an eidetic memory? Like, do you have a photographic memory? Because you should not be able to remember that this garment was worn by this skater in this magazine.
Oh, that's his world.
20 years ago.
He's so good at that.
It was designed by this guy who worked at Nike ACG, but actually they poached him from Patagonia. The shit that he knows is so little did I know. I just like, again, struck gold, like meeting, this incredible designer. And I traded him like cheap screen printing and embroidery for critiques on my work. And I remember like initially, like what he said, which was pure genius and like as simple as it gets. It was infuriating at the time, but he just told me, he just said, focus on the product and be patient. And like the more and more I focused on the product and made all those mistakes and corrected them, and then hired Charlie and spent money on premium textiles and trims, and, really hammered down on the quality of the product, the faster the brand grows. It's like, it's an immediate, connection between how good is the product, how big is the brand.
Yeah, I think that's first off, thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. And I'm not surprised. I mean, I think Antonio's knowledge is so good, and he has such a great perspective on his designs. Like he knows, almost too good. I mean, not that it's actually bad, but it's like he's like so far ahead, because I remember talking to him, I was like, man, he's on the big stuff before a lot of other people doing it. Like he knows how to like build this world, and he has all the technical expertise to back it up, and I think he's just been very good at that. But like, on the product development stuff that you've been doing, I do think it's almost like a common thing, or at least stuff that I've wrestled with, when it's like, whenever you put some like your own output into the world, in some cases, I think there is a weird thing where it's like, in order for it to get accepted, we almost belittle it and devalue it in a way that actually, in hindsight, hinders its own growth, to where it's like, look, if you make stuff and you price it cheaper than everyone else, one, people will just buy you because they want, some fake thing of the better thing. But if you make the good stuff and it's expensive, or, it's worth the money, you're investing, the product costs as much because it's got the good stuff in it. Like, I think people really, really respect that now, far more than they ever did. Like, people pay for quality. They're not against it anymore.
That was like one of the first things he actually recommended to me, like, or pretty early on.
Yeah.
It was like, you need to double your prices. Like, have some respect for the work that you're doing and for the product. Cause like, as a designer, you're just like, it's why it doesn't work. It's desperation. You're just like, please accept me. Please, dear Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Please buy these things. and that's exactly right. But also at the same time, I remember I put out a cardigan, and I was like, all right, I just want this to sell. I'm kind of taking a swing here. I'm just going to price it real low, and that way it'll sell.
Yeah.
And I remember we did a pop up in New York City, in Manhattan, like right near 316 and 18 East. And I remember a guy came in, grabbed the cardigan, like looked at it and was like, oh yeah, this is really nice. It was like going to buy it, was like taking it off the rack. And he was like, how much is this? And I told him it might have been like $135. He goes, oh, and just put it right back on the fucking rack and walked right back out. And I swear if I had told him, oh, that's $300, he'd be like, oh, not, because there's like an implied value with stuff that is priced higher.
There is.
Where, but then there's also, it's just like most people, at least in this little segment of the world that we live in, they don't want crap. So like if they see it's priced low, they just assume that it's shitty. So
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's at a pop up or something, right? Where sure if it's at Uniqlo, it's like that's kind of like what they expect. We're like, oh, it
Yeah.
should, in a weird way, like if it's expensive at Uniqlo, you put it back, right? But
Yeah.
if it's expensive at, and this is no shots to Uniqlo, I love the brand, but like
Yeah.
if it's at a more affordable price at a place that feels like kind of boutique and more high end, there's like a bit of a double take. But I'm glad that you've done that, because I think, yeah, I mean the brand's obviously grown exponentially, and it's not just because you're using better stuff. I think it looks like too that this isn't the old Mike where you're just looking at other things and like, oh, let's make that or let's make that.
That's it.
There is a
That's
perspective.
exactly right.
There is, there's convictions in the design in a good way where it's like, okay, well, I don't think you're going to make this product because someone else does it and you're not trying to do that, but you're going to keep building your own world.
Yeah, I've got like I'm learning on the fly, and I'm like reinventing the wheel often, which sucks in some ways, but it's good in other ways. But like another big thing about Antonio is he cannot abide in authenticity. Like
that's true
to no end.
Yeah.
Like where just the littlest tiniest detail, if you're kind of faking the funk, even a littlest bit, done. It's a piece of shit. Like and I really respect that from him. And because of that, like design philosophy that I've kind of like taken on for myself, like a big question for like, especially like the styles that we choose to run is me asking myself, like, do I have the right to touch this? Which is like why I'll never make a Western shirt. I have no right to touch it. I've been to Utah one time. I am as Eastern as it gets. I've never worn anything Western. I've never owned cowboy boots. I never will. It's not who I am. So you'll never see me make a Western shirt. If you want a Western shirt, go to White and get it from guys who live that shit.
Yeah.
Because they do.
Yeah.
And that's why they make it so beautifully. But you'll never see me do that. And that's like, it's what you're saying. It's like, it's not like looking out and say, oh, it looks like Wythe is doing, good sales in these shirts. Like maybe we should get on board. It's like, let them, that's them. That's not us. We like, I like carpentry and like home improvement. Let's make a work coat. And that's our best selling item. And it's like, I live in New England. I love the outdoors. I've got an aunt who lives in New Hampshire. We used to go climb Mount Monadnock. Let's make some hiking pants. That would have been like good for that. If it's not authentic, if it's not actually authentic to you, I really, and it's like what you said. It's like, there's like we're honing in on like a singular voice. And to this day, I know it's 10 years down the road from getting but to this day, I'm still, finding out who I am and like what my identity is, and like and it's informing the brand at the same time, since the brand is really just like an extension of me and where I come from and whatnot. So
I mean, I think that's beautiful, and I think in a lot of ways that's probably your superpower. The fact that you can be open and welcoming and communicating your own journey, I think only empowers others in the best possible way. Like I've said this on tons of things, and like it's still really important to me. Is like I never want to compete with people. Like the table for me is infinite. Like there's a seat for everyone here. We can all make stuff. We can all do good work. And I don't think anyone's ever going to go hungry. Like, because and also it's, I think it's great to show that like, yes, like Antonio's giving you feedback and Andrew Chen and all these like, yeah. And because it's fine. No one's like, well, I'm not talking to that person. No one's here to eat anyone's lunch. Like,
no, it's because they know. It's funny. Like the smaller brands that are really like insecure.
Yeah.
They think that way. They think like, oh, they're biting me.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. But with the big brands, like, that my brand can't be the same as your brand as much as I can't be you. Like there are no two people who are exactly the same. So there's no way, unless you are copying and being inauthentic. If you're really who you are and really who you say you are, there's no way your brand can be the same as mine. Which is why, like, if you see an 18 East lookbook, it doesn't look like anybody else's lookbook at all. You can almost like take the logo off of it and ask a person who knows whose lookbook is this, and they would say, oh, that's an 18 East lookbook. And the same thing with 316. The same thing with like Emilion Dor, the same thing with Kith, really. Like,
sure.
If you see Jerry Seinfeld wearing something he shouldn't be wearing, that's a Kith lookbook. And it's the same thing. And it's the same. And Kith is enormous for a reason. They make some good shit.
Sure.
And it's the same thing with me. And I'm really proud of that, where I don't think, if you look at our lookbooks, I don't think you say that we look like anybody else. And when I look back at like the few brands that like kind of like stick in my craw or whatever, like kind of grind my gears, like the smaller brand, or not smaller because some of them are bigger than me, but like the ones that kind of make me want to hate, but I restrain myself.
Sure.
It's often because, especially like right now,
I know exactly one of the brands you're referring to. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking of like 3 or 4 of them, but they just copy Amelie Dor. Like right now, it's just, can we get a script logo onto a white and green hat? Can we put a chair on a vintage rug and hang some shoes off the back of it? Like, and that it does infuriate me, but it also, I've kind of like matured in this way. It's like, I just know that stuff won't last.
Yeah.
It's nice to know you can't fool the universe if you're faking it. And maybe one day they won't be faking it. Like when I started Manresa, I was blatantly copying this brand's / like creative agency called the Madbury Club.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, with like Phil and Ann's and like the photographer that 316 uses. There was like a big group of them. There's like 8 of them, and they were just so fucking sick. And I just copied the living shit out of them for like a year, and then found my own voice and moved on. So maybe these brands that I'm kind of taking shots at, maybe in a year they'll find their own voice. Hopefully, because I really, like you're saying, I just want more good shit.
Yeah,
that's all. If you're making good stuff and it's authentic, then I'm on board. There's plenty to eat. There's lots of money in the world.
Yeah, preach. Agreed. Well, Mike, Thank you so much for chatting.
You're the man.
Dude, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It was great meeting you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Blamo. Our show is produced by Blamo Media. We're edited by Amar Lowell, and our theme music, as always, by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. If you like what you heard, you know the drill. Share the pod with a friend. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars or thumbs up on whatever other thing you're listening to us on, whether it's Dingledorp or Bing Bong, whatever it's called. But you can also follow us on Instagram for all the hot content. If you want to talk to us and give us your hot take, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at info@blamopod.com. Last but not least, super, ultra important, if I had a air horn, I would press it right now. You got to come and join us over on Patreon, because the fun never stops over there. Look, the live show, the free show, whatever you want to call this, we take breaks here and there, but Patreon, it never stops. And we also got exclusive shows like Die Workwear, hosted by Derek Guy and Peter Zotolo, and the Triple J Show, hosted by yours truly with John Moy and Gene DeLeon. There's just a ton of stuff over there. So check it out at patreon.com/Blamo. If not, no worries. We got hundreds and hundreds of free episodes in the feed, and more to come. So we will see you all soon. Take care. Happy 2024.